What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Almost Functional 30K. Here to go over some more of the layouts and stuff for ATC 2024 coming up in a few weeks. This is going to be the third layout that they're using. It's actually layout 4, the GW Prime Nexus Tournament Companion. They're not using layout 3, so this will be layout 4. So let me go ahead and pull that up onto the screen for you. This one is a major shooting gallery in the middle. There are major firing lanes this way, this way, this way. Really, the only spots you can avoid firing lanes are sneaking around the outsides here. You have to run across this one. So you really have to play the outsides to avoid firing lanes. Coming up through the middle here, people are going to be able to get firing shots on you all over the place. So this is going to be really hard layout for combat armies into shooting armies, even more than layout 2. So far this is it's hard to believe any of the others can be more than this, but this is a major shooting gallery to the middle. Like, there's no hiding out here at all. So I got all my terrain here flipped upside down, if you see, because that's the way GW has it lined up. So some of these layouts, if you have this away games terrain made by Big Bear 3D, you will have to build it. It's modular, so don't glue it together, because you're going to have to move these walls to the other side for certain layouts, or you can just do like I did, flip it upside down. Looks a little more wonky because these bottom pieces are on the top, but it does work just the same. Or if you get enough, like I got a bunch of spare pieces, you might be able to build extras of these. So going back to that, if you remember layout 2, I was worried about the home field. If they use these terrains having a shot in, I'm assuming they'll have extra pieces with the wall. So I don't think that'll be a problem, but just keep an eye out on it. But that's going back to layout 2. But this should be about how it looks for layout 4, which will be the third layout that they're using. So I'm going to go ahead and start setting up the missions on there. The first one, we're going to set up the deployment for Tipping Point, and that will be for rounds 1 and 4, missions B and A. But let me get that set up, and then I'll come back. This is what the Tipping Point deployment looks like on layout 4. I'm not sure if Tipping Point is really suggested for layout 4, because all of the objectives, not the center one, but the other 4 all seem to have their tokens want to land underneath a wall, which I believe is something they try to prevent. Let's see, they are recommended for layout 4, so I'm not sure if they'll just play it this way, move the terrain slightly, move the objective slightly, or leave it under the walls. Unclear on that. I don't think it's that big a deal, because they are walls you can pass through. So I think they probably will just leave it how it is, but that is something to pay attention to for this pack, for these 2 missions. So this is the deployment here for this side, deployment here for this side. So the first round, it'll be on this layout, it'll be Purge the Foe, which I've gone over in the other videos, but I'll go through it just in case you're only watching just this one. So you can get 4 points turn 1 for killing a unit. That's all you can score on primary turn 1. Then starting turn 2, you get 4 points for killing a unit, 4 points if you kill more than your opponent that battle round. And then you get 4 points in your command phase if you control an objective, and 4 points if you control more than your opponent. More objectives than your opponent in your command phase. Unless you're going second at the bottom of turn 5, then you score at the end. And then the mission special rule for this one is Smoke and Mirrors. Unless you put an additional unit into reserve after deployment, which you can deploy it and then pick it back up. It can be up to 500 points, and it can take you over the normal allowed number of units and points allowed in reserve. So depending on who you're playing against, that may or may not even be relevant. And then the second mission on here is Take and Hold. It's just hold an objective for 5 up to 15. Probably the most straightforward mission in the pack. So Really not much to go over there. If you've been playing 40K for any of the last couple editions, this is really pretty straightforward mission for you. And then raise the banners is battle line units on an objective at the end of your turn. You can raise a banner on it for 1 VP. 1 VP. This counts towards secondary, not primary. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you have the potential to score 5 extra secondary points, you're still capped at 40. So depending on whether or not your army does good in secondary or not, you may or may not need to even worry about this. But that's it for Tipping Point. All the objectives will be able to be held from behind buildings on the Tipping Point deployment, which is nice because of how wide open the middle of this one is. So that does help you a little bit. You can play the outsides, hold your 2, even possibly hold this one, your home one, and then shoot for this one. Potentially do like, you can't do the short triangle, but you can do like a big triangle, stay out of shooting possibly, depending on what you're facing. So there are ways to play around the shooting gallery, depending on secondaries and stuff. Just try to avoid the middle as much as possible, unless you have to go do something in the middle for a secondary. But you could really, in a lot of cases, just try to hold 2, keep them off the middle, and they keep you off the middle, and then beat them on secondary. Or if you go second, push for that middle one at the end of the game. Or just try to, if you think you can pull it off, take these 3 and just stay out of the middle altogether. So I think this one, especially with 2 armies that have decent shooting, you're going to be playing around the flanks here and really cagey about what does or doesn't go into the middle. If you're playing 2 combat armies, you really won't care. You're still just going to run straight at each other for the most part, because shooting doesn't matter. Combat versus shooting, combat army is really going to have to need to play these flanks and angles, which, depending on the mobility of the shooting army, could really, really cause problems for a combat army. But that's it for the Tipping Point deployment. So we'll go ahead and set up the next one, and we'll be right back. So this is what Search and Destroy looks out, laid out on layout 4. This will be rounds 2 and 5, missions J and I. So you see the two objectives in your deployment zones are they exactly the same as they were in the last one. Middle citizen. These 2 have moved from around here to over here. Still able to be held from behind the wall, so still helps with the shooting on this layout. So kind of the way you play this is very similar. These are a little easier to get to now, but you're going to be out in the shooting lane to hold them here, so you're probably still going to want to get to the other side of that wall if you're trying to go this way and take that one. The downside is this one moved further this way. I'm just talking like I'm coming out of this deployment zone just to make it easier. So this one got closer to get to, but you still want to get behind the wall. So it probably hasn't changed too much how you want to hold that one in shooting matchups. This one here actually moved further away from you, so it's be harder to get to and easier for them to get angles and take it from you. So this one, I think the middle will be a lot more important because it's harder to hold the 3 like this, like I was talking about in the other one. So this one, I think, going to be more of a draw on primary, unless someone is really able to hold the middle. If they have something really durable they can push in there, or if you're both combat armies and one's able to take position first. And then, so the first mission will be Linchpin. This is the one where if you control your home objective, it's worth 3, and then each of the other objectives is worth 5. But if you lose your home objective, each of the other objectives is only worth 3. So you really need to hold your home objective in this deployment. I would definitely really lean into screening out, bubbling out, so people can't drop behind you, people can't come through and take your home from you. So definitely want to make sure you have units to guard your backfield. Anything with extra deep strike deny would probably really good for this mission. I always love to bring infiltrators. I think they would be perfect. They just sit back here and just kind of let me not have to worry about this, whether my army just worries about stuff coming from the front. And then the special rule for this one is also ritual, or not ritual, raise the banners. Let's see. Right. Yep. Let's see. BJP. Yeah, so mission A, no. Sorry, I'm lost where I'm at. So this should be missions 2, which is B and A. Okay, I did something wrong on the other deployment. So there was Purge, Foe, and Smoke and Mirrors. BJP. No, right, yeah, this is I. This is I. So I is Burden of Trust and Prepared Positions. BJP. This should be P. Now, where is... All right, hold on here. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I got myself confused. So this is round 2, mission J, which is Linchpin and then raise banners. Well, my brain was telling me I just had the letter wrong. So Linchpin plays that way. Raise banners. It's the one where you can get 5 extra secondaries. It's the same one we went over at the end of the tipping point deployment. And then you get Burden of Trust, which is when we get 4 VP for holding an objective, but then you can have a unit guard it. And at the end of your opponent's turn, if that unit is still on the objective and still controlling it, you get an additional 2 VP. So you can potentially get 6 VP for an objective per turn. Players turn switch each objective where they control is not within their deployment area. So you can't do it with your home objective, but the middle 3 and there. So it's really going to be... This is going to be a tough one on this map because you're not going to get points for holding your home base. So you're going to have to go take that one or this one and then fight over the middle. So you're going to get 4 and 4, possibly 6 and 6 if you're holding it. And then anybody who has anything that can walk out, sit here, and survive in the matchup, I believe will have a heavy advantage in this matchup. And for each objective marker the player controls, they can select 1 unit from the army with a range to guard it. Now, I believe I saw them say that even though you can't score the 4 victory points for your home, you can still guard it because it doesn't say guarding has to be no man's land. I would check with the TOs, but I believe I saw that in one of the questions, and I believe that was confirmed. I can look back and see if I can find that. But that's just something to ask and confirm because you may be able to sit here and get these 2 all game. I mean, it's not much, but that's 8 points if you can do it for all 4 scoring rounds, which could be a huge thing. So potentially 8 here, maybe 0. Confirm that they are letting you guard this, even though you can't score it regularly. But if you want to get the 4 points for controlling, you've got to take one of the 3 or multiple of the 3 middle objectives. And then the mission rule for this one is prepared positions. This is one where you can use the go to ground and heroic intervention strat for 0 CP on battle line units, but you can't use it if you've already used it on a different unit that round. Thanks. All right, so let me go ahead and set up the last deployment, and I'll be right back. All right, so this is the last deployment, Crucible of Battle, which will be for rounds 3 and 6, which will be missions P and N. So the objectives here you see moved almost back to where they were before. They're 2 inches further, or 2 inches this way and that way compared to the first mission, but they're a lot further over here. So this gives you a little more of a chance to play it like we were talking about the first one. And with this deployment, you have the potential to push into these a little harder. Because really it's not that hard to get to here or to there from on your line. So depending on your matchup, if you feel you're able to bully your opponent, you may be able to push hard there early, which will only really matter in the first mission. So let's get into the missions. The first one is Scorched Earth. This is one where you can burn objectives. So you get 5 VP for burning an objective, and then you also get 5 VP for controlling objectives, up to 10 per round. Now, if you burn an objective, it disappears. So be careful burning one you think you could hold for a couple rounds. You can't burn your home one, and if you burn the one in your opponent's deployment zone, you get 10 instead of 5 for burning it. You can only burn one per turn. So if you don't burn any objectives, you're going to max out at 40. So you're going to want to burn 1 or 2 to try to get your max, 2 middle ones for your opponent's home if you want to try to max your 50. There's also a mission where if you don't think you're going to be able to pull off the burn because you have to survive through your opponent's turn, you could play a little more cagey and possibly go for a secret mission at the end if you think you're going to be capped at 40 anyway, and you think they're probably going to control the board early. You could sit back and just plan on scoring 20 regularly and set up yourself for trying to get that secret mission late. This is a mission, I think, where that could possibly, in certain situations, be a viable strategy if you don't think you can get to 40 any other way. The mission special rule for this is Inspired Leadership. That's just if your Warlord is outside of your deployment zone, any unit within 9 and that can see him gets +1 to the battle shock tests. Not a huge thing. And then the last mission is the Ritual. On the Ritual, these 2 outside objectives disappear. And this is the one where you're able to raise objectives as an action. They have to be within 12 inches of another no man's land objective. And they did clarify that you measure center to center on these objectives. So it's not from the edge of the objectives. It is from the center of the objective to the center of the objective for 12 inches. And they have to be within 1 inch of your unit that's doing the action and more than 9 inches from 6 inches from any other objective. So with the restriction of 12 inches as opposed to 9 in the old Ritual, you are going to be limited a little more on how many objectives you can drop. But I think you still reasonably fit 4 extra objectives for 5 in the middle here. I would assume in most cases, 3 to 4 is probably what you're going to have to deal with. And then for scoring, you get 5 VP for each objective, up to 15. So very similar to Take and Hold, other than the fact that you have to raise the objectives if you want to score, and you can't score your home objective. Right? Each objective marker in no man's. Yeah, so it's not your deployment zone. So you can't score yours or your opponent's home objective for primary points. They still matter for some of the secondaries, but for primary, they're not really that important. And then the special rule for this is Swift Action. It allows your battle line to advance or fall back and still do an action, which with as many action secondaries and the fact that you're going to want to be doing some ritual actions could come in really favor units who have 1 or 2 battle lines to do that, or armies that have 1 or 2 units to do that. So this is one of the ones where you'll probably feel the loss of battle line if you're not running any. I am considering running a list without battle line for ATC, but I'm not 100% sure on that yet. This is one of the missions that makes me second guess it. Raised banners isn't as concerning to me because it's probably 2 to 3 points in most games, and it's off a secondary. So I think I built my list to score secondary fairly well, so hopefully that's not a problem. But if you're not able to raise the objectives where you want them early in this game by not being able to advance a battle line or something, then your opponent gets to kind of choose where the objectives are dropped more than you do. I think that could be a major disadvantage to not having battle line. But we'll see how that goes through playtesting. Once we get closer to the ATC deadline, I will do a video describing what I ended up deciding to do with my list and why, how the missions played into it, all that. But that's it for all of these deployments. Feel free to like, subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps get this info out to more people, although you may not want more people to be prepared for ATC. give yourself an advantage. But share it with your team. Share it for your close friends' teams. Let everybody get that little bit extra info and knowledge to help be ready for this event. Because with all these new layouts, all these new missions, every little information you can store in the back of your brain. You don't have to try to figure out at the table. Will probably be very useful to you. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.